Welcome to Stressed, Depressed, or Burned Out, the warning signs you shouldn't ignore. First of all, thank you all for being here today. I appreciate you taking the time to attend a non-technical session here at SQL Bits. It means that you care about yourself, a loved one, a coworker, and I really am proud of you for that. This is an important topic, and I hope that sharing my experiences here today can help someone. So my name is Cathrine or Cathrine Wilhelmsen. I'm from Norway, and I work as a solutions architect in a company called Evidi. On my free time, I like to blog and speak about topics like Azure Data Factory and Azure Synapse Analytics, and that's also why I've been a Microsoft Data Platform MVP since 2015. You can find me on Twitter at CathrineW, and I blog on cathrinew.net. This is how I usually present myself when I'm delivering technical sessions. This is my highlight reel, my achievements, who I am and who I want to show to the world. But there is also another side to me. On the flip side, the parts that I don't usually show are things like I get migraines quite frequently. I have problems sleeping. I've been on extended sick leave due to burnout multiple times, and I was clinically diagnosed with depression over 15 years ago. So I've been struggling with that since. And these are the things that I usually don't talk about, so I am nervous today. I hope you can bear with me if this session is slightly more chaotic than my sessions usually are. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about my experiences dealing with these things. So today, I don't have the answers or the solutions. All of these experiences are very personal. It's very dependent on who you are, how you think, and how you feel. I'm not a professional, so I am not your therapist, and you are not going to be my therapists in this session, but I can share my story. And hopefully you can take away something from that, learn something, and go back and hopefully you won't have to deal with the same things that I have. So I have a few goals for this session. First of all, I want to raise awareness. So just by being here, having this session on the schedule at a technical event, I hope is going to make it a little more acceptable to talk about these things. There's still some stigma to talking about mental health. I also want to try and give you ways on how you can recognize these things in yourself or others. I'm hoping that that can lead to understanding and more empathy for yourself or the people you care about. And I also want to talk a little bit about treatment and options for that. If you know someone who's dealing with this, if you're dealing with it yourself, there are ways to make things better. And before we get started, I will mention that I am going to talk a little bit about suicide and suicidal ideation today, a difficult topic. If you need to talk to someone, go to sqlbits.io/need-to-talk. That will give you all the information to the on-site therapist here at SQL Bits. I have had many conversations with her myself. She is an amazing woman. She is here for you whether you're just feeling slightly overwhelmed, you need to talk to someone, or if you really want to cry your eyes out. She's really good at that. I've done it myself. So make sure that you go and talk to her if you feel the need for it. She's here for you all day. So let's start with the fun topic of the session, stress. How many of you have ever felt stressed? That's basically the entire room, yeah. I'm not surprised, we all have. Stress is a very common part of our lives. It's something that all of us feel to some degree at some point in our life. Some of us a little more than others. So I want to start with a little exercise. I want all of you to spend a couple of moments thinking about how do you feel stress. It's easy to say, I feel stressed today, but what does that mean? And you can write down some keywords, just go through it in your mind. Just try and think about the actual feelings and the physical reactions that you have. What happens mentally to your emotions? Are you feeling some similar emotions? What happens to your body physically? Do you recognize some symptoms there? Or emotionally, like how does it actually feel? How do you define stress? Does anyone want to share a few keywords that popped into your mind?
Tired.
Tired? Anything else?
Heart racing.
Heart racing, yeah.
Overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed? Those are good keywords. Just keep it in mind. Let it sink in for a bit. So what is stress? How do you define it? What is it actually? Stress is kind of a two-part reaction that you have. First of all, it's your mind responding to things like being under pressure, getting overwhelmed, having difficulties coping with certain situation. But it's also your body reacting to things like changes and challenges and threats. And there can be multiple reasons why you get stressed. Some of them can be external, others can be internal. So examples of that, which I'm sure you can all relate to some or more of these points, family and relationships. Could be a lot of stress there. Dealing with spouses, children, parents, day-to-day, daily activities. You have to, feed them, provide for them, drive them. A lot of daily stress. Or in relationships, and that can be both romantic relationships or platonic relationships. Work relationships and friends can also cause a lot of stress. Your own career and finances, very big thing. If you are worried about not being able to, pay the bills, pay the rent, buy food, that's a massive amount of stress that you're putting on yourself there, which is not even caused by you directly in many cases. Your career, you can feel stressed about, can I achieve my goals? Can I actually do this task? Can I get through this? And all these feelings of being not good enough or, you're lagging behind everyone else, a lot of different feelings there. Things like illness and injuries can cause stress. If you're dealing with things like I do with migraines or other kinds of chronic illnesses, or you suddenly get injured, it's like, how do we deal with this? How do we manage our days around that? And then there are more of the internal stressors like expectations and perfectionism. If you are a high-achieving person and you constantly want to push yourself and pressure yourself to reach your goals and do more and take that next step in your career, and you also have that perfectionist gene where 80% is not good enough. It's got to be 120% before you're satisfied. You're going to push yourself and drive yourself and build up that stress from within. And it can also come from things like low self-esteem and self-worth. If you feel that you don't belong somewhere, that you're not loved, that people don't care about you, all of that can cause a lot of emotional stress as well. And one thing is that most people, when we talk about stress, we talk about something negative. That is very common. Stress is a negative feeling to most people. And too much of that stress can be harmful, but there's also some helpful stress. So if you're dealing with distress, negative stress, those are the feelings that we've mentioned now, where you feel like you're struggling to do something, you're having difficulties, or you feel overwhelmed. All of those are kind of negative types of stress. But you also have the sort that is positive, which is more like those micro stressors maybe, where you feel excited about doing something. Maybe like if you're planning a wedding, that can be extremely stressful, but it's a positive thing. At the end, you're going to do something. So a little bit more like you're feeling excited, you're anticipating something, but you're still stressed. And both of these are still stress, and that's very important. The effects on your brain and body is the same, whether it's positive or negative. It's just one type of stress feels better because you know that the outcome of that situation is going to be something good. So this can also be kind of a way to hack your mind, maybe, if you reframe situations into something positive. Instead of saying, I can't do this, you can say, I can do this, or I get to do this, I will do this. Kind of take a little bit more power and see if you can turn the end result into something that is more positive. It's a way of kind of tricking your brain into feeling like this isn't terrible, it's not comfortable, but it's not terrible. And whether you're feeling distress or eustress, positive or negative stress, it kind of depends on how you experience that situation. So there's going to be a lot of text popping up on the screen now. I'll just talk through these points quickly. Again, it's all about how you look at the situation and how you frame it. Do you think of it as a threat, something negative, or as a challenge that you can overcome? It could be the same situation, just depending on how you look at it. And I can look at something as a type of threat, while others look at it as a challenge. So we're all different here. We can experience the same situation in many different ways. Does it make you feel concerned, worried, or scared? Or does it make you feel excited, or energized, or motivated? That's also a huge difference in how you perceive that stress. Does it make you feel overwhelmed? Or do you know deep down that you can manage it? You can have both of these feelings. You can be super overwhelmed, but still feel confident that I will get through this. I feel overwhelmed right now, and that can kind of motivate you into making an action plan to manage that situation. If the situation or challenge, problem, threat has an unknown solution, like if you don't know what's going to happen, we often perceive that as something more negative as well. If it has a clear solution, we can be super stressed about it, but at some point we know this thing will end. And one of the most important things as well, is it long-lasting or is it time-limited? For most positive stress situations, you know that it's going to end at some point. If it's lasting and lasting and lasting and it continues to grow, then it's going to be a lot more difficult to deal with that. So going back to what I asked you to think about in the beginning, how you think and how you feel, what actually happens when you get stressed? So what happens, and this is a Star Trek reference, your brain yells red alert. Like this alarm bell goes off in your brain subconsciously, and that makes your brain ready to shield some weapons. Your organs are going to go into alert mode. And what happens here is that the brain releases hormones like adrenaline and cortisol into the body, and that triggers other processes as well. So things like your heart rate goes up, your breathing becomes faster and more shallow, your muscles tense up, your digestive system slows down because the body is making sure that all the blood is going into the important organs. And if you are stressed, digestion is not the top priority for your body. And all of these things that happen automatically. It's not something that you can control. So this is just like a very old instinct, and you probably know it as the fight or flight response. So when you get stressed, your body prepares for either fighting, where it gets ready to confront a situation. It can get ready for flight or running away from the situation, or it can even cause you to completely freeze, which is, again, standing still to avoid a situation. And this response was crucial for our survival as a species way back when. If there were dragons, as we know they were back in the day, and you met a dragon, that fight or flight response was your body literally trying to keep you alive. It's great when you're on that quest to slay dragons. Your body tenses up and is getting all prepared. You have all of this adrenaline ready to, just jump in and whack at that dragon with a big axe, or maybe you just run away as fast as you can and you need all that blood and oxygen in your body. Or maybe you're just like, I hope he doesn't see me. I hope it's like the T-Rex from Jurassic Park. If I just stay still, he's not going to see me. And your body just kind of clamps up, right? That's what happens when you get stressed. But our daily life is not a life or death adventure, right? We don't fight dragons every day. We go to work, we make dinner with our family, we do our activities and our hobbies, but we still experience this fight or flight response too frequently, I would say. So there are a couple of warning signs here. If you experience more or many of these things, a few of these things, you might want to consider, maybe I need to handle this differently than I'm currently doing. So emotional is the first one. Some of you may have thought about these things. If you get stressed, you can get very anxious and worried. What's going to happen? Can I do this? Will I be able to get through the situation? You can get irritable. If someone comes and pokes at you and demands something of you, when you are stressed, you can kind of snap at them. I know I can do that easily. I don't mean to, but it happens. Or you can get angry. If you're feeling very overwhelmed, you can get angry at a situation because, that is a way for you to manage those kinds of situations. And you can also get restless. Again, with all of that adrenaline rushing into your body, the cortisol that starts the glucose production to make sure that all your organs have enough blood sugar to, actually spin into action, that can cause a lot of jitters, right? So shaking is another thing. Your legs are shaking, your hands are shaking, and all of these physical things where it has an emotional effect on you. And the other physical warning signs, very common one is insomnia. And by insomnia, that could be multiple things. It could be not being able to fall asleep at night. It could be waking up frequently at night, or it could be falling asleep multiple times when you're not supposed to fall asleep because you're struggling to sleep when you want to. You can get all of these aches and pains in your body. Headaches, for me, is a big thing. And I'm very familiar with different types of headaches in myself. I know when it's a stress-related headache, or when it's a dehydration kind of headache, or when it's an actual migraine attack that I have. But you can also get physical aches in your body. So you can, again, if your muscles tense up and they tense up for a long period of time, you're probably going to feel it in your shoulders and your neck, maybe your back, because they're all really, really tense, and that's going to be uncomfortable. It can affect your weight. So with all of these, hormones being released into your body, your digestive system slowing down because, you want to focus on the heart and lungs and muscles, it can be easy to gain weight if you're stressed over too long time, or you can lose your appetite and rapidly lose weight. Again, completely depends on how you react to it. You can be restless and still have low energy. You don't feel like doing anything. You're kind of just sitting there, but you're like, I need to do something, but I can't. So it's like a conflict that you have there as well. And for me especially, stress for me can result in breakouts of acne, which again just makes the stress even worse because no one wants to go around and look like they're in their prime puberty years, especially not if you're standing on stage like I am doing here. So that just makes things even worse. So there are a lot of these physical responses to all of the hormones and processes running around in your body. Cognitive as well. If you're stressed for a long period of time, you can struggle with your memory. You might start forgetting things. You might, have these little memory glitches. It makes it more difficult to focus and concentrate. It can make you, can make bad decisions, your poor judgment, and all of these things because you're just stressed, overwhelmed, and your brain is not functioning the way it's supposed to. And then there are also these behavioral signs of stress where you might end up self-isolating because this is overwhelming, this is too much, I just need to withdraw into my own safe space and stay here for a while. You can cope with stress by substance abuse, and by that I mean you're drinking too much, or you're smoking too much, or maybe you even try something that's even stronger than that, just to be able to get through the day. Is also very common. And again, reduced activity. If you feel like you're stressed and you're not getting through things, you're deprioritizing things that probably is good for you, but you feel like something else is more urgent. So you stop working out, for example. And how we manage that is Again, it's depending on who we are and how we react to it. But if we don't manage it, it can start to feel normal. I've talked to a lot of people this week about this, and they have also told me, which I also feel, that when you get used to that stress, you get used to that adrenaline rush, if you stop doing those stressful things and you sit down and you relax, you start to miss it. You feel like you're not doing enough. You're not doing what you're supposed to. You feel like you are supposed to be running around because that's what your body is used to. So you kind of start missing that adrenaline rush, and that makes it even more difficult because you start feeling, guilty about all the things that you want to do. So if you're struggling with too much stress, there are two ways to deal with that. You can prevent it from happening, or you can reduce it if it has already happened. In terms of preventing or treating it, you can reduce your workload. If you're stressed at work, talk to a manager or coworker, see if you can delegate, see if you can, change the deadlines of certain tasks, very specific things that you can do to make sure that you don't feel overwhelmed on a day-to-day basis. You can work on improving your own time management, which means that you're removing distractions for shorter periods of time and then really focus on that, which might enable you to actually get through more tasks at the end of the day. So this is something that you can consciously do. You can disconnect regularly, and I hope you all do this. If not, I encourage you to do this even more. Put your phone away for half a day. See how it feels. I'm guessing that quite a lot of you, like me, start, automatically reaching for that phone. It's become this little, safety device. Everything is there. Our life is there. But try putting it away, turning it off, putting it in a drawer, leaving it somewhere else. Turn off your screens, your computers, your TV. Go do something else. Read a book, go for a walk, and let your mind wander. It's super important. I notice when I'm stressed, it's a constant flow of input. Something like I'm constantly taking in new information. I'm never allowing myself to work through that and process that. And again, there's a reason that we sleep, 8-ish hours per night. Our body literally shuts down for a certain amount of hours because it needs that time to actually work through and process all the impressions you've had, to store memories. And if you give yourself even more time to do that, you might see that, stress goes down, creativity goes up, and suddenly you start to feel a little bit better. And reach out for support if you need it. Reach out to friends, to family, to coworkers, to a therapist, and get help to process these feelings. It's not easy to deal with it if all you feel is stress and you can't really break it down into these components that I'm talking about here. And then the things that we probably all hear, but is difficult to do when we're stressed, socialize. Being around people that we care about, that we love, is going to release other kinds of hormones like endorphins, oxytocin, all of these wonderful hormones that make us feel good. That can help reduce our stress as well. Get enough exercise. Easy to say that we're going to do it. Hard to actually do unless you have a very strict regime. Same thing with eating healthy. We want to do it. We might not be good at doing it, but all of these things have effects on our stress. And you can also practice mindfulness, which is all about kind of what I'm trying to share here today. It's understanding how you feel, notice those feelings, sit with those feelings, let them be, and then just let them go. Mindfulness is a topic all on its own, so you can read up on that if you want to. And I think my favorite part here is hacking my body by breathing. And this is something that I do consciously very often. And there are a couple of different ways that you can do this. So if you're feeling stressed, we can try this together if you want to. I'm not going to force you. But one thing is to breathe in slowly and count the seconds that I breathe in, and then count the seconds when I breathe out. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, breathing in. 1, 2, 3, 4, breathing out. And I repeat that. two things happen. First of all, I'm focused on the counting, which means that all the other thoughts, they disappear for a while. I'm kind of replacing everything that is spinning around in my head with something that is very, strict and ordered. And the breathing as well, if you breathe deep, it's going to, get more oxygen into your body, and it's going to make you feel better physically. The other thing that I do is I breathe in for, 4 to 6 seconds. Breathe in slowly and deeply in your nose, and then all the way into your stomach. And what I want you to do here, if you try this, is to let your stomach out. We're constantly holding our stomachs in and, your posture and things like that. I want you to breathe all the way down into your belly and feel it actually expanding out. So make sure that you fill your lungs all the way down to your belly. And the same thing, once you've done that, hold your breath for a few seconds, 4, 5, 6 seconds. You're going to feel that things are happening in your body, and then breathe out slowly, 12 to 16 seconds, whatever. Double the time of how long you breathed in, basically. And make sure that you breathe all the air out of the lungs. And do that a few times. You're going to notice something in your body. You might not be able to explain it, but you can feel that your heart rate is going to slow down. You can feel that stress and tension is going to release. And if you, at the same time, make sure that you unclench your jaw. A lot of us get stress jaws, and we don't notice it until we actually relax. And your shoulders, make sure to, drop them down, chest up, and breathe in. If you do that consciously every time you get stressed, you're going to notice a difference. And it's kind of cool. It's like hacking your body, basically. So I wanted to spend quite a lot of time on stress and how it feels and what you can do to reduce that stress, because if you do that, I'm hoping that you don't have to deal with these other topics that we're going to get into. So the key takeaway here is manage your stress. Understand how it affects you and how you can manage that. But before we move on, I want to see if we have any questions related to stress. It's perfectly clear? All right, nothing virtually, otherwise it would have been on the screen, I suppose. Okay, so burnout. How do you imagine a burned out person? If you hear that someone is burned out, what do you think of that person? Does anyone want to throw out a few keywords on this one as well?
Stopped caring.
Stop caring?
Procrastination.
Sorry? Procrastination, yeah. So burnout can be, I'm sure you can describe it in a million ways, but I like to think of it as physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion. You're exhausted. And you're no longer able to function normally because maybe you have dealt with chronic stress. You have been stressed too long, very frequently over time. And at that point, you might end up actually overextending yourself to the point where you can no longer do that. It can be because of poor work-life balance, where you might not be super stressed all the time, but you're just, you are constantly juggling things and you don't have those clear boundaries. And it could be long-term emotional drain. So more like if you're constantly feeling low on self-worth, maybe you are very anxious, maybe you feel like you're not functioning optimally in social situations, all of these things that are very draining in your mind when you're dealing with that, all of these things can lead to burnout. And there are two types of burnout. So the first one that most of us think of is the typical overworked type of burnout, where you're overwhelmed by the amount of tasks that you have to complete, by family and work, and you're constantly, rushing from one thing to the other, where you're working long hours. And I think if you ask someone, burnout, it's someone who's working, 80 to 100 hours a week. Maybe that's a very typical sign of burnout. That you have little downtime, or just too many responsibilities. So this is the overworked type of burnout. There's also kind of the opposite of that, where instead of feeling overworked, you feel undervalued. And this one is a little bit more sneaky, because overworked brings out all of those stress symptoms. You can feel it in your body, you can feel those reactions, but feeling undervalued affects you in a slightly different way. So in this case, it could be that you're understimulated at work if you are constantly working on repetitive, boring tasks that don't challenge you at all. Maybe you're being treated unfairly. You can see someone else getting advantages and you are not. The work can just be meaningless or feel meaningless. You feel like what you're doing is not living up to your own values. You can feel that you are working just to put money in someone else's pocket instead of having a positive impact on the world, for example, or that you just don't have any control over what you do on a day-to-day basis. You can't control your own task, you're just being assigned things. And this burnout dragging is not as friendly as the stress dragon. And burnout is not something that you just feel for a day or two. So burnout, I think, it's been kind of watered down, like many words we use for common day-to-day feelings. So when I hear people saying that, oh, I feel a little burned out today, I say, no, you feel overwhelmed, you feel stressed, you feel annoyed, you feel tired, you feel exhausted. But burnout is more serious than that. Burnout is basically your mind and body shutting down because you have felt those feelings for a long period of time. And if we compare stress and burnout, stress is when you feel overwhelmed, when you do too many things, you worry a lot. In short, stress is a lot. Stress is many things happening. Stress is very in your face, like it slams open the door and goes, here I am. That's how stress is. While burnout makes you feel empty, makes you feel like you have no motivation, makes you feel like you stop caring. So it's the other side of it. It's like you've done things too much and now you're done. And it's in the word as well, burnout. You're not in flames, that's the stress. Flames are gone, all that's left is embers and ashes. There's nothing left. That's burnout. And I don't want any of you to get to that point. So some of the common warning signs of burnout, obviously chronic stress, one of the massive things, so refer back to that list of all the stress symptoms and how you feel there. But it can, did not mean to do that. It can also be that you're unable to focus and complete tasks. If you constantly find yourself working long hours, working through weekends, through vacations, because you feel like you have to catch up on things, like you're never really there, you never really reach your goals, you never finish anything, so you're constantly pushing yourself to do more and more just to be able to do what you were supposed to do in a time frame at work. It might cause you to become more cynical, passive-aggressive, or maybe even angry and resentful towards your coworkers, towards your family, anyone who is around you in those stressful situations that have led to burnout. And we can prevent this. I would say that, the first and most important thing is dealing with your stress, understanding it, how you feel it, and how you manage it, and deal with all of those coping mechanisms good for stress. Exercise, get enough sleep, eat healthy, drink enough water. We all know and have heard of these things, but you actually have to do them. That's the main thing that you can do. Also make sure that you schedule and take regular time off. I live in Norway. We are very fortunate to have, 5 weeks of vacation every year that we are forced to take, basically. You know, some of you live in other countries where that is maybe not the case, but use all the vacation time and paid time off that you can. If you are working for a company where you have unlimited time off, there's often this culture that, you know, you don't really use it because you want to, you know, it's frowned upon. Use it. All the free time you can. And make sure that you actually take that time off. Don't bring your laptop on the beach or sit with your phone while you're at a restaurant or something. Actually try and disconnect during that time. Give yourself time to de-stress and make sure that you don't let it go too far at the same time. It might have to force you to cut back on activities that you might enjoy. Maybe you have, you know, 4 different hobbies that you're doing every week, and it's just too much to deal with all of those on top of work and family and, you know, all the exercise and these things that you need to do. So maybe you need to cut back on those for a while. If you feel that you're starting to get stressed, you're getting close to a burnout, cut back on them because you don't want to get to the point where you can't do them anymore because you are burned out. And learn to say no. This is easy to say, difficult to do, especially if it's something that you enjoy doing. I was a yes person, like, yes, of course I want to do that. Yes, this sounds exciting. Yes, this is awesome. And then I had to juggle all the different tasks, right? And if you get to the point where you actually go full out burnout, not just feeling stressed, not just feeling overwhelmed, but you've completely burned out, it's going to be difficult, and it is going to take time. You have to work through all the things we've talked about here to identify and change all of those underlying issues. It might cause you to go on sick leave for a long period of time. You might have to get a new role, because with burnout comes a lot of guilt and shame, and it gets difficult to deal with coworkers if you suddenly disappear from work or you suddenly get to the point where you can't do your tasks, you stop caring. It can cause conflicts at work, so you might have to end up getting a new role. Or maybe you've come to the point where you can't work for this company anymore because it's not good for you. There are no real quick and easy fixes to burnout. So hi, I'm Cathrine. I've burned out twice. I've been through all of these things, which is why I'm talking to you here about it. I can't tell you everything in a 50-minute session, but I would like to come and talk to you after the session if you feel like it could be helpful to talk through some more specifics. But what I've gone through is 2 different things. My first experience with burnout was that typical overworked kind of burnout. It was working too many hours. I took on too many tasks and responsibilities. I was a high achiever. I wanted to, learn all the things. I wanted to do all the things. I wanted to get better. And at some point, it just said stop. That was my first experience with burnout. And I ended up being off work for about half a year, recovering from that. And it was very rough having to tell everyone that I can't work anymore because I've worked too much. You feel a lot of shame and guilt, on top of having to deal with all of your own issues. The other time I burned out was, you may have heard of this thing called COVID. Yeah, I think we had some experience with that. When that happened to me, it basically shut down my entire life. So my life up until then consisted very much of going to work and working, and then I would come home, work on technical sessions and blog posts and all the things that I do as an MVP. And during weekends and even vacations, I would travel around the world to speak at events like SQL Bits. It was my main hobby. I loved it, I enjoyed it. It was the positive kind of stress that I dealt with. But then the pandemic hit and everything shut down. And I basically lost my entire network of friends for 2-3 years because I couldn't travel and meet my friends. I have very few friends back home in Norway, where I live. So it destroyed my social life. It took away my hobby. And it caused all of this fear and anxiety because I have family members at risk, and I was terrified that I might lose them during that pandemic, especially in the early days. So all of this caused just like an overload of things that made my brain, it went haywire to the point where I couldn't do my job when I was at work. So I tried to do it at home so I couldn't relax. And very classical burnout, just having too many things going on at once. And that time was for me, I actually ended up shutting down my blog. I closed my blog because I couldn't have it there anymore. I couldn't deal with getting comments or questions or something like that, which I usually enjoy, but I couldn't deal with it anymore. So I closed it. It was a way for me to just I'm gonna not think about this thing anymore. And then I got through that, fortunately. Then we got to the next topic after that. But before I move on, do you have any questions around burnout? Yes?
How has it affected your values?
How has burnout affected my values? For me, it has made me reevaluate what is important to me. So where my work and career was very important in the past, I've learned to appreciate friends and family more, and also to take time for myself to actually relax. I think maybe the values is more around family, but it has changed many of my habits as well, if that answered your question. Yeah. So when I got through that phase of burnout, I had a year where life was great. Then we got to the part where I really hope that none of you have to deal with, which is depression. And a quick exercise. Again, I want you all to imagine a depressed person. What does that person look like? What do they do? How do they feel? Because a lot of times I hear people say that a depressed person, they sit alone in a corner and cry all day, which is not accurate at all. One of the most recent things that really affected me was a person that I had followed for over a decade. He was a dancer in So You Think You Can Dance in the US. That's where I discovered him. He became the DJ on the Ellen Show, and he posted a ton of dance videos. He did things that I physically cannot do with my body, but he was such a wonderful person on the outside. His name was Stephen Boss, nicknamed Twitch. He had a family. He had a wonderful wife. They were married for 9 years. He had 2 beautiful children. And on December 10th, he posted the happy anniversary post with his wife. On December 12th, they posted this video of them dancing, which they did multiple times a week. It looked like they loved each other. They had a good life, a happy life. And on December 13th, he was found dead by suicide. That was one day after that video was posted. It's the last one on his Instagram feed to this day. And that hit me so hard because I can relate to that so much. On the outside, you can smile, you can dance, you can be happy, you can enjoy life, you can be around friends, but no one sees what goes on inside you. And that is depression. Depression is an illness. It is not a mood, a feeling, or a choice. It's an actual illness. And I like to compare this with breaking your legs. If you break your legs, everyone can see that something is wrong with you. You don't tell a person with 2 broken legs to have you just tried walking? Have you just tried to get better? Have you tried yoga? Maybe some mindfulness would help. It really kind of feels that when you are depressed. People mean well, but they try to help you with your depression the way that you need help with stress, right? So depression is an illness. When people say, oh, I feel a little depressed today, I can understand them. I can relate to that, but they are feeling sad or they are feeling upset. Because I've dealt with depression for 15 years, and I know that it's so much worse than just having a bad day. And depression, it doesn't necessarily make you want to die. It just gets so bad that you don't want to live like that anymore. So you might not be actively thinking about ending your life, you can't deal with life the way you feel it right now. And the depression dragon is a beast that I hate. He's been by my side for a very long time, and he makes me believe that I'm worthless. He tells me that life is not worth living anymore, and there is no hope for the future. There's no point in doing all of this. Why should you even bother? Why should you care doing this thing when everything is meaningless anyway? It is extremely destructive, but it's not just a feeling on a certain day. It's something that's there constantly in the back of your mind. And burnout and depression have many of the same kind of symptoms and feelings, but where burnout is more a response to a specific situation that lasts over time, it can make you feel empty, no motivation, and you stop caring. You can also do that if you are depressed, so it's kind of similar to that, but depression is more on the internal beliefs. You feel hopeless, you believe, and it's not like you just logically think you're worthless, it's you truly believe that your life is not worth living, you should never have been here in the first place, and you don't want to do this anymore. The easiest way is to just end your life, basically. And I don't have time to show this video at this point. I will share a link in the slide deck. There is a video called A Big Black Dog, I think, by the World Health Organization. It's a 5-minute video where he kind of talks about this big black dog that lives with him all the time, the way that I talked about my dragon right now. I absolutely recommend seeing that. In short, what it is that the dog is always there. Sometimes it's small, sometimes it's big, sometimes it wants to, it just jumps on you and takes you out. Other times it's, dormant in a little corner, but it explains and describes the feeling of depression in a very good way. So I know we're running a little short on time, but I will make sure to share that link with you. And when you're depressed, again, yoga and mindfulness and, just breathing, it's not going to fix things. It can help you with the underlying issues, like if you're dealing with stress and anxiety, but it's not going to fix your depression. When you're depressed, there are basically only 3 things that can help you through that. One is time. You will get through it. When you're in the middle of it, you don't believe that for a second, but you will get through it and things will get better. You can go to therapy and get help processing all of these feelings, and I recommend that to basically everyone, even if they are not depressed or burned out right now. And it could be medication. And for me, coming here, I'll hop to this one as well. There we go. This past weekend, I wasn't even sure that I would be here this year at SQL Bits. I submitted some sessions back in November. I submitted sessions on motivation and this one on stress, depression, and burnout, because I assumed that by March, things would be fine again. I was depressed at that point, but I used it as a way to get out of my depression. But I was sure that come January, things would be better. And then January came and went, and it was not better. Okay, February is gonna be fine. No, it wasn't. Okay, March. So up until last week, I didn't think that I would make it here this week, that I would have to call and cancel and not show up here. But fortunately, I decided to try medication for the first time in my life. I went through 4 weeks of trying first a medication that, it didn't work. So 4 weeks when you're already at your lowest, having to wait 4 weeks to just go, this isn't working. Okay, we're gonna double the dose, try another 4 weeks, still not working. All right, we're gonna try a second type of medication that might help the first one. Only thing that caused were side effects, so bad that I ended up in the emergency room and my parents had to come and pick me up and take me home for a while, just to make sure that I would make it through the rest of that week. So we decided to cut that medication out. I think that was a good choice. And tried the third one, which started coming into effect only last week for me. And last week was a turning point where I could start feeling a little bit more like myself again. And I always knew logically that I would get through it, but it didn't feel like it, but I knew I would because I have done that in the past. But this time, that medication helped me so I could be here today. And I am extremely proud of myself that I am actually here. This is not really the session that I wanted to present because I haven't done half the things I wanted to do, but it is good enough because I am here and I got through this. And this is helping me cure my depression. So we are almost out of time. If we have any more questions on this, I will be outside the room or down in the community corner. I'm more than happy to talk to you more about these things and see if I can help you more with that. But just some final words. You're allowed to feel the way that you do. Even if others have it worse, if your challenges aren't as difficult as someone else's, your struggles are valid. Don't ever tell yourself that you're not allowed to feel sad or upset or stressed because someone else has it more difficult than you. Your struggles are valid and you are allowed to feel those things. And I do hope that you find someone to talk to if you need that help. Please go and talk to the therapist. She's called Tracy. She is an amazing woman who will give you insights into yourself that you never believed that you could find. So make sure that you talk to her. Thank you again for coming today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I hope the rest of your day is more fun than this session had been. Thank you so much. Please leave feedback as well if there's anything or come and talk to me. But again, enjoy SQL Bits and thank you so much for being here today.